welcome to the truth about truth. And we'll just keep moving through, as Tanya says, the perfection and the imperfection, or the perfection in the imperfection, and just know that it's all perfect. So we are going to be talking tonight about how you know what is true or not, and why knowing what is true or not right now at this time on the planet is so very important for you. So this is such a great cartoon. I don't even remember where I got this, so I apologize that I can't credit this to where I found it. I think it was floating around. My husband sent it to me, and I don't know where he finds some of the stuff. But we're all pretty familiar, I think, with the top part of this cartoon, right? Us versus them. Us versus them. If you see this, the back panning viewpoint of Earth as we get more and more distance, we see this blue dot and this tiny little disruption. And there's a quotation at the bottom from Carl Sagan that says, "There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world to me. It underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known." That's Carl Sagan from 1994. It's hard when there's a lot of disruptive energy in the world to know how to drop into what is truth and what is true for you. Truth, there are certain core immutable truths. The core immutable truths that I would say are inherent for all of us is that love is a creative force. We see that in the G Center. Love is the force that binds us all together, and it binds us onto the planet, and it binds us into our life path. That's also the G Center, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We are designed to value ourselves and our unique and vital and irreplaceable role in the cosmic plan to such a degree that we proclaim and defend and honor our individual stories. And when we are living from that authentic place, the cosmos or the universe or the quantum field is perpetually broadcasting to us, what's the next right step? What's the next right step for you in the unfolding of your plan, in the unfolding of the evolution of your story? For you to know what the next right part of the plan is, you have to know how you know. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is knowing how you know. And we're going to talk about why, if you aren't living true to who you are, you're not only feeling miserable, you're also actually blocking your communication system to what is truth for you. You're not going to be able to hear and to experience that signal that the cosmos is constantly broadcasting to you, showing you that unique way, that unique path that is only yours to follow. So here's a little bit of a different way. If you've taken any of my courses and trainings and programs, you know that I talk a lot about the quantum field and the manifest reality. This is just a little bit of a different way to look at it. So if we think about the quantum field being sort of the top part of this slide, in the middle of this slide, there's a filter. That filter is your conditioning. It's all the stories you've been told, all the belief systems you have, all the emotions you've experienced, all the memories you're holding on to, your ancestral lineage. All of that is contained within that filter. And then beneath that filter, you have your earth life, your current reality, your manifested reality right now. The quantum field exists outside of the confines of linear time. It's timeless. Fifth dimensional time, there is no time in the fifth dimension. So in this slide, you have this quantum field. It's timeless. Down below, through our filter, we have this artificial construct, this third dimensional construct that is linear time. And in linear time, we have a very different perception of the cosmic plan. It comes to us in steps and in gradients. We usually don't get the whole plan at once, and that's part of what frustrates us sometimes, right? Because we want to know the how, and we can't figure out the how in the way that the cosmos knows the how. So when we're looking at intuition, part of what's happening with intuition is we're taking a leapfrog over our conditioning field and we're stepping into timeless information and what I'll call cosmic truths. To be able to understand the bigger picture, if you will, the nonlinear picture of who you are, why you're here, where you're headed, to get those deep, true downloads, you have to understand what is actually living in your conditioning field.
So a little bit of a different way for us to look at this is that here's our physical body. We have our earth story that we're living in, and in that earth story are all the constraints of everything that defines earth. Like we have sort of collective agreements in the earth story that the sky is blue, it's above our heads, there's ground beneath our feet. There are certain core elements in the earth story that hold us all together that on a soul level and on a cosmic level we agree on. We have our emotional body and the mental body. These are the two parts of our energy field that contain our beliefs and our memories, and we have our physical reality. When we use our intuition, we're leapfrogging over all of this into the quantum field where we are able to connect with the non-manifest reality and most importantly, unity consciousness and the truth that we talked about in the very beginning, that is, we are here to love. We are here to grow in love. We are here to create in love. We are here to act in love. We are here to be bound together by love. And when we know how to tap into that field, we're then better able to expand upon what it is that we need to know to become the next, to play our unique role in the unfolding of the next right step of the evolution of the world. Our world and the world in which we perceive, our perceptions, are based on our experiences and the meanings we hold. We create the constructs through which we connect with the cosmic plan through the meanings we have. Meaning, if you have meanings about things in your life, such as, let's say, money, and those meanings are not strong and powerful, if you have a meaning about money that says money is scarce or money is hard for you, or as soon as you get money, you lose it, or as soon as you get money, you want to give it all away. If you've got meanings around core constructs on the earth story, it's going to influence how you experience those constructs. The more we understand how our intuition operates, the more we understand how to connect outside of our story, meaning the more we know how to leapfrog over our identity, leapfrog over our conditioning, and tap into greater knowingness, and the cosmic plan within which lives the story of who we are and what we're here to do, the more we can bypass the personal self, the greater access we have to truth. So let's talk a little bit tonight around what that means. What do we need to do to become more intuitive and to better be able to tap into truth? So that when we open up the news and we look at the headlines and we're starting to niggle around with small details about Earth stories, we're better able to leapfrog over the data and tap into the bigger picture of what's really going on here right now. Is it really the Democrats versus the Republicans? Is it really the conservatives versus the liberals? Or is there something else going on here? And are we better able, once we understand how to take that bigger leap and that bigger perspective, to see that maybe it's not about this perspective and that perspective, or this perspective versus that perspective, but rather it's about understanding what's really going on and what's your role in it. So if we want to become more intuitive, if we want to be better able to unlock our deep knowing, our ability to tap into truth, the very first thing we have to do is we have to decondition. You cannot see truth if you're still living from a conditioned identity. So if we go back to this particular slide and you go to the mental body, which is where you hold your beliefs, and the emotional body, and the physical body, which is where you are physically experiencing your life, these three components of your identity are holding on to your conditioning. Your energy field and your body are holding on to all your beliefs, all the things you've been said, all the stories you were told, all the things your teacher said to you, all the things your parents said to you, the traumas that you experienced, your ancestral lineage, your ancestral memory, your own interpretations of your life events, your own life events and stories, the things that have happened to you that forge and shape the story of who you perceive yourself to be. Your conditioning is impacting your intuition. And if you are holding on to any conditioning that is in any way causing you to act from an internalized message that says it's not okay for you to be who you are and how you are, it actually clouds your ability to see the truth. Because when we are experiencing any kind of conditioning, it stops us from being able to see what's really going on, because we drop into what I call in the quantum alignment system protective identities that we adopt to keep ourselves safe. So let's say, for example, you have memories as part of your story that have caused you to internalize the idea that you're not lovable, that you can't be loved for who you are. And when you have those stories internalized, that creates for you a protective identity. That protective identity means that anytime you go out in the world, when you encounter relationships that could potentially be healthy for you and good for you, if you don't believe that you're lovable, you're not going to pick up on the cues and the clues that that's the right place for you to be or the right person for you to be in relationship with, because you've cultivated a protective identity that's going to keep pulling into your experience things that match your memories and your belief systems. There are 5 kinds of conditioning in human design. Usually we only talk about the first kind, which is openness by center, which means when you have openness in your chart, wherever you have white in your chart is where you're taking energy and attention in. Sorry, you're taking energy in and you're amplifying it. So you're taking energy in that openness, you're amplifying it. It oftentimes in those open centers creates predictable behavioral patterns. It creates mistaken motivations in relationships, and we're not authentic in our relationships. It's places where we experience the world through relationships and through our encounters with each other in the world. It is one way that you are conditioned. It's not the only way that you are conditioned. And I do think that, and when we talk about human design, if we're only talking about conditioning in the context of openness by center, we're missing a lot of the other places and the other ways that we can be conditioned. The second way that we can be conditioned is we get imprinted from our family. So we get imprinted from our families of origins. That means that your parents' type and their centers are not only going to impact your energy field, right? You're going to be experiencing your parents' auras. You will also experience your parents' behavior, and you experience how they're living true to their design or not. And it can oftentimes, because we get imprinted by, and this is neurobiology, this isn't just human design. We get imprinted by the way in which our parents behave. It can sometimes cause us to think that we are like our parents, and sometimes we are, and sometimes we're not. And so I find it interesting that I very often encounter manifesting generators raised by projector parents who act and think that they are projectors until we go into their charts. Then they're like, oh, because they've watched their projector parents act like projectors and they've been imprinted by their behavior, not just their chart. You're also imprinted, by the way, and this is important to understand. And again, another reason why it's so important to decondition and to really be clear about who you are, because you can, to a certain degree, I don't want to say resist this, but you can be in a higher state of alignment if the consciousness of the planet is kind of icky right now, which I feel like it is to a certain degree. You are imprinted by the current level of consciousness on the planet. But the more you get connected to the truth of who you are, the better able you are to lift the consciousness of the planet, which is why the work that we do is so important. The internal deconditioning work is essential, because the more we get clear, the more we decondition ourselves, the better able we are to be to see beyond the current level of consciousness on the planet and lift it by virtue of our own actions and our own being. The third way that we are conditioned is through generational energy patterns. So you inherit your human design from your grandparents. Your children inherit their human design from their parents. From your parents. And so you start to see that every other generation you have these patterns that emerge. So your parents and your children have similar designs. You have a similar design as your grandparents. And so either through our parents or through our children, we get to work through certain core family energetic themes. And oftentimes when we do our deconditioning work, it's really literally like clearing our family lineage in all direction of time. It makes obviously our life better for our children, but I believe that it also heals our ancestral lineage. And even if our ancestors aren't with us, or our parents or our grandparents aren't with us, I do believe, because outside of the realm of Earth, once we go back into the quantum field, we exist in timelessness. So our ancestral lineage is timeless, that we actually can clear old miasms of conditioned patterns in our ancestral lineage. The fourth way that we get conditioned is through genetics and epigenetics. Whether you like it or not, some of the ways in which you behave and some of the choices that you make are influenced by your genetics, and most importantly, by your epigenetics. Your DNA is actually regulated by protein codes called epigenes that can carry up to 14 generations of ancestral memory. You can also rewire your DNA by changing your story and deconditioning, which is why, again, just going back to family lineage, the more we decondition, the more we create higher states of well-being across our entire family line. Last but definitely not least, the last way that we get conditioned is through what's called the design crystal in human design. You have a crystalline template of information called the design crystal, which actually lives in the earth prior to your conception. At the moment of your conception, it's called forth, right? At the moment of your conception, that design crystal is called forth out of the earth. And that design crystal carries in it the code of information that is essential for you to fulfill the human parts of your story. So it has the code for your body. It carries the code for the elements of your life story that make you, like who your parents are, where you live, your ancestral lineage. All of that is held within the design crystal. So let's talk for just a second about conception. In human design, conception actually happens 8 hours before your parents get together. That conception actually starts first with the father's energy field calling forth the design crystal. So your father's energy actually calls that design crystal out of the earth, that crystalline code of information. That design crystal then engineers which sperm actually meets with the egg and starts to set in play all the developmental sequences necessary for you to become you. That design crystal manifests your life story and your life purpose. And it's bundled with something called the magnetic monopole. So the magnetic monopole is literally what it sounds like. It's a magnet that only attracts. So it has one pole. It only attracts. For a long time, we thought that was a scientific impossibility, but now we actually have discovered magnetic monopoles are a thing. And scientists do believe now that it is possible that there is a magnetic monopole in the core of the earth responsible for gravity, which is actually what Ra taught many, many decades ago. So the magnetic monopole sits in the G center when you're born and you come out as a human baby. Your magnetic monopole is nicely placed in your G center. It attracts everything into your life that is in alignment with the quality of love that you are experiencing in your life. It is a unifying energy. It aligns you with your earth identity. And as I said, Ra used to teach that scientists will eventually discover that it was responsible for gravity, and we are pretty close to knowing that that's quite possible. If we look at the Earth has a magnetic resonance field that looks sort of like this. Interesting to note that the heart also has a magnetic resonance field that looks just like the Earth's. So I like to think of it as the Earth has a big heart and we have little hearts. These are all magnetic forces that are held together and bound together by the quality and quantity of love that we hold. Now, the truth about who we are lives in the G center. The G center is where the code for the higher purpose lives. And if we look at the gates in the G center, so don't look at your chart and get all wonky about this. This is a universal truth for all of us because the chart itself is a blueprint for the human story. And what the chart shows us is that we are designed to love ourselves through the gate 10. We are designed to be powerful and to have influence over our life path and our life direction. That's gate 7. We are designed to live aligned with our purpose, and that purpose is a purpose that we ourselves define for ourselves. We are designed to write and tell and share our own story, to have sovereignty over the story we tell about who we are. And that's a story that really includes or asks us to let go of the past on a daily basis and redefine for ourselves on a daily basis who we choose to be. We are designed to take our direction from source and to know that we are infinitely loved and supported in the fulfillment of our purpose in the world. We are designed to love our bodies and to fully embody our bodies with vitality. We are designed to be supported in the fulfillment of everything we are. We are designed to be compassionate and to share what we have. The higher states of consciousness that we have around these core themes, the more we love ourselves, the more we embody our power, the more we live true to our purpose, the more we take control of our own narrative, the more we trust source, the more we take care and nurture and love our bodies, the more we allow ourselves to be supported and trust in our support, the more we share, the more aligned we are with cosmic truth, because that is the truth of the universe. So in a way, the truth of the universe is contained within the heart. And the more we clear anything that's blocking us from self-love and self-worth, the more we live, the more we can trust the wisdom of our heart to attract the monopole. That magnetic monopole will attract into our lives in response to that quality of love that we are experiencing. So there's a second crystalline code of information. You may be wondering about it when we see your chart. And if you've got a chart that says personality and design, the personality crystal, which actually is solidified at the moment of your birth, the personality crystal contains your soul purpose. So you're really a blend between your life purpose and your soul purpose. Your whole life is a journey between this life purpose that is embodying your soul purpose. And then the more clear you are, the more your life purpose and your soul purpose can emerge through your life story. And the more you're going to hear the guidance and the truth that you need to know in order to be able to really fulfill your life purpose and know what is true for you. Obviously, also, this combination of energies makes you a once-in-a-lifetime cosmic event. So there's never been a design crystal married to your soul purpose the way you are right now. And for you, in this current incarnation, if you don't take anything else away from today, here's the thing I really want you to take away. There's never been anybody like you before, ever. There will never be anybody like you again. You are literally a precious, precious cosmic event. Love yourself and love your story and value that story because it is so precious. There's literally nothing like it. There's never been anything else like it. You are more precious than the Hope Diamond or any other rare diamond. There was a big pink diamond, I forgot what it's called, that sold for like $1 million recently, millions of bucks recently. For you to be able to know your truth, to be able to navigate through a rapidly changing landscape and know what is the truth that you need to know in this moment for you to be able to take your next right step, you have to know yourself. You have to know how you are hardwired and what information you have access to based on your design. So your design crystal, as I said, manifests your life story and your soul purpose. Your soul path is going to tell you a lot about what you're here to do as part of your life incarnation. And of course, your human design, which is the map of how these two parts of your personality work together. Your human design is going to tell you a lot about how do you interface with the bigger program? How do you interface with the information that's going to tell you what's your next right step? What's the next thing that you can do to fulfill your life and soul purpose? So when we look at the chart, there are different kinds of intuitive channels in the chart. When we look at, if you think of channels, in this case, I'm not talking about human design channels. I'm actually talking about channels like on a radio station. So if you imagine for a moment that you're playing the radio, does anybody play the radio anymore? I don't know if people actually play the radio anymore. So if you were playing the radio, maybe you're doing your radio in your car. I still have a radio in my car. And you were going from station to station, you would be picking up different frequencies of information, right? Each station has a different frequency. That's why it has a little number, and That's why you hear different music at different numbers on your dial. Your intuition is kind of like a radio station. You have different channels, if you will, that you receive information on. And those different channels are going to influence how you interface with truth and how you experience truth. So the different intuitive ways of knowing are called clairaudience. That's what we call intuitive listening. That means usually you have an internal voice in your head. Also, sometimes that means you can hear like subtleties in people's voices and you can tell just from the way they say something that they're not being on the up and up. Clairsentience is when you're empathic and you feel intuitive information. Clairvoyance is when you have what we call psychic sight, and usually that's not with your physical eyes. Clairvoyance is more like seeing a vision inside of your mind's eye. I like to think of it as sort of having a drive-in movie screen on the inside of your forehead, right? Sometimes you get those intuitive flashes or those intuitive scenes. Claircognizance is often the one that drives us the nuttiest sometimes because it's hard to trust it, because claircognizance is really knowing and not knowing how you know, just knowing that you know. Clairolfactance is actually like smelling intuitive information. So a lot of times, like, it's not unusual to say if you work with the angelic realm, you'll smell roses in the air, or if you connect with, say, the energy of a crossed over loved one, you might smell their cigar, or you might smell coffee or their aftershave. And dreams is, of course, one of the other ways in which we receive intuitive information or truth. There are three sources in human design of intuition. There's instinct. Instinct comes mostly from the spleen center. There's openness, which is how we feel and experience others. So any of you who have open centers, you're always taking in information and energy in your open centers, and that's influencing how you know others or what you know is truth. And then there's what I'll call, and I mean this really facetiously, actual intuition, meaning the kind of intuition where you leapfrog over the physical interpretation of the material world. You actually go transcend your conditioning and go into the quantum field, and you can see the big picture of what's really going on. So the first, as we talked about, the first kind of intuition is openness by center. This is, again, being empathic, or oftentimes we'll call this clairsentient. So any place where you have openness, you're going to know people through those open centers. So if you have an open sacral, which means you're either going to be a manifestor, a projector, or a reflector. If you have an open sacral, you're going to be feeling and sensing people's workforce and life force energy. If you have an open G center, it means as soon as you step into somebody's aura, you know their whole story. You know who they are. You don't always even know how you know that you know, but you can feel the whole story of who they are. You have an open emotional solar plexus, then you feel and sense intuitive information empathically, right? You can really dial into how people are feeling and really feel their feelings and their emotions. Your spleen gives you animal survival instincts. So the spleen center gives us impulses, and it's usually pulses that are felt or experienced as fear. It's healthy fear, by the way. It's not the fear that keeps you paralyzed and stuck because you don't want to go build your website because you're afraid of your visibility, because you don't want to be authentic or seen in the world. That's something different. But your spleen actually gives you fear-based impulses that give you insights about what you need to do, what truth you need to follow to keep yourself safe in the world. So this is where your animal survival instincts live. And then there is, as I said, your intuition, which is those places where we are designed to connect and transcend over our conditioning and really literally leapfrog into the quantum field. And some people are by design beautifully hardwired to do that quite naturally. These are people who tend to be sort of more naturally psychic, if you will, or channelers, or people who are able to really transcend their own experience and go into a bigger, non-linear, time-based reality and really see the bigger picture. Anybody that goes into the Akashic records, for example, is using that kind of intuition where you're leapfrogging over the human story and going into a field of information that transcends the current material reality. All right. So let's break this down. And this is the part where I really want you to get your chart out And before we go through this, I just want to say, if I go through this and you're looking at your chart and you're pretty clear that you have a specific channel that you can rely on to connect with your intuition, and it's working for you, then by all means, if what I say doesn't match your own experience, you get to be the authority, not me, about yourself. I really want to drive that point home. That's probably my big goal for the rest of the year, is to reemphasize for people over and over again. You're the only one that knows your truth. You're the only one that knows your truth. No one else can tell you what your truth is, including no one else can tell you this is how your intuition works or this is what's going on with you. You're the one who knows about you. I want you to claim that for yourself. I want you to own that and to become sovereign over that again, because for many of us, we get that beaten out of us at a very early age. And we forget that we're supposed to be the ones that are in charge of our own lives, and you are. There's no expert about you other than you. You are the expert on you. So the first intuitive channel we're going to talk about is clairvoyancy. That's, as I said, psychic seeing and also dreaming. Being clairvoyant tends to be associated with the gates in the head center. So that's the gate 64, 63, and 61. So if you have any of those three gates defined, it oftentimes means that you have really natural clairvoyant or psychic sight. Clairaudience, which is said is hearing intuitive information. That's hearing into, being able to tease out subtleties in people's voices, or sometimes it's hearing the cadence of positive, influential, good quality voices in your head. I say that really carefully. I always joke, I have not had a lot of jobs in my life. I'm technically kind of an unemployable person, but I did have a short job as a psychiatric nurse in a state psychiatric facility, and it was actually, at that time, I don't think they use this term anymore, but at the time it was a schizophrenic unit. It was a criminal schizophrenic unit, which meant I was the tiny little 20-year-old in this criminal schizophrenic unit with these very large schizophrenic, they were literally inmates because they had committed crimes. It was a very interesting time in my life, but we were always telling our patients, please don't listen to the voices in your head. And now I teach people to do listen to the voices in your head. If you're clairaudient, you should listen to the voices in your head. Those voices, though, will be loving, kind, informational. They will be soothing. They will be giving you information that's going to help you. If you understand, and sometimes, really taking the time on a regular basis to really listen, if you understand the difference in the cadence between the voices in your head, and you start really getting habituated to listening, you'll probably hear, if you're clairaudient, there's a really beautiful voice in your head that's constantly guiding you. If you can learn to tell the difference in the cadence and the quality of that voice inside your head, because it's a little bit different than just you talking to yourself in your head. When you can really connect with that, it gives you an enormous amount of insight and guidance. The other places where you also can hear clairaudience is in the channel 5734, and also in the gate 22 here, the gate of surrender. It's actually a gate of the ear, so is the 34. So is the 57. Clairsentience is when we feel others. It's a way of actually experiencing truth in our bodies. So for those of you who, when you encounter truth, you get chills up your arms, that's clairsentience. Or when you walk into a room and your body's like, nope, not going in there, that's clairsentience. When you feel other people and you sense them and you don't even know how you know that you know, but you can just feel like, ooh, this person doesn't feel good today, that's clairsentience. And as I said, oftentimes we experience clairsentience in our openness. There are also circuits or channels within the human design chart that will make us more prone to interpreting information through the physical. That includes what I like to call the miracle circuit in quantum human design. It's called the sensing circuit in traditional human design. And the channel 1949, the channel of intimacy and connection in quantum human design. It's called the channel of love and marriage in traditional human design. So this circuit and this channel can also oftentimes be associated with clairsentience. Clairolfactance is psychic smelling. So if you have this channel, oftentimes you literally will smell intuitively. I always tell people the story of my daughter. I have a daughter who has this, and it is wild. I mean, it sounds strange, but she can smell pregnant women. She smells women. I mean, she knows, like, psychically, a woman will smell pregnant to her before they've even taken a pregnancy test. So I think that's a very interesting one. We think about this. This is where integrity lives in the chart. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. And think about some of the things we say in our language about integrity. We say, oh, something smells off, right? Or we say, oh, it smells like a rat, right? That's that whole integrity piece, and it's so deeply associated with clairolfactance. So I find that fascinating. Let's see. Claircognizance is knowing how knowing some. This is like I said, this is one that sometimes drives a lot of us who are really logical. It drives us nuts, right? Because when you're claircognizant, you just know stuff. And it doesn't come with instructions like, you know this and here's why. Go find this page in the research manual and study this and here's all the proof. It doesn't come with proof. It's just, you know that you know that you know, right? And so you have to learn to trust this one, especially. It's very difficult, I think, in our culture that doesn't value knowingness. To trust your own knowingness, but there's definitely, if you have this kind of circuitry going on, and you can have a gate or a channel, it doesn't matter how much of this you have. What matters is, do you know that this is working for you? Do you just know stuff? Do you have a consistent record that you've noticed that you just know stuff, and that you maybe have had a history of discounting it for yourself? I'd like for you to explore what would it be like if you'd allowed yourself to trust your own knowingness. Okay. If you have an open head or an open ajna, you are oftentimes, and that's most of you, by the way, most of you are mind readers by design, because you're able to read the defined heads and ajnas in the room because you're taking them in and amplifying them. So you know what people are thinking and you think you're in sync with them, but really what you're doing is you're just reading their minds, right? And it's kind of interesting to explore. Open throats are often also associated with channeling, especially if you have an open throat connected to the gate 12, or you have a non-motorized throat connected to the gate 12. So if you're a generator or a projector and you have the gate 12, you'll have also you potentially have a non-motorized throat. Channeling is also oftentimes seen, as I said, in the channel 2212. And oftentimes you'll see people who have a floating head and ajna. So if you have what we call a split, where you have a defined head and ajna but no connection to the throat, that's also oftentimes the design of somebody who channels, who has information. They don't know that they have the information until somebody asks, and then all of a sudden the whole encyclopedia comes out, right? The spleen has some interesting challenges with it. I'm just going to go through this. So the gate 48 is going to give you a signal. It gives you a signal. There's fear, and that's a protective signal. If you get fear from the spleen, it's really actually a healthy thing. It's usually telling you, hey, there's something here you need to pay attention to because you're being threatened. And recognizing that and trusting that is important. But sometimes, because we're a little bit more complex than just being instinctual beings, when the spleen gives us signals, it's often giving us a pulse to let us know that when we have the gate 48 defined, it gives us a signal to let us know when we know enough, and that it's time now to go out and share what we know. The gate 57 gives us an inner sense of knowing about what's next and what we need to do to prepare for the future. The gate 44 gives us an instinctual knowing about whether a pattern from the past is repeating itself or not. The gate 50 gives us the intuitive knowing about what other people need and the ability to know when we need to give it to them or whether we need to give it to them. The gate 32 gives us an intuitive knowing about when the timing is right to take action. The gate 28 gives us an intuitive knowing about what's worth fighting for and what's worth living for. And the gate 18 gives us an intuitive knowing about what patterns need to be corrected. and what we need to do to make those patterns better and more in alignment. To understand the past, so if you are trying to figure out the truth about something that happened in the past or make sense of the past, so you were a psychic and somebody was coming to you and their grandmother had just passed and they were looking for some papers and they don't know where their grandmother left the papers, and you are able to use your intuitive ability to go back into the past and see, like, what did grandma do with the papers? Oh, she stuck them in the little tiny drawer on the top left of her secretary desk, right? The understanding of the past comes from the miracle circuit or the sensing circuit in the chart. The logical circuit or the pattern circuit in quantum human design is about knowing the future and, most importantly, understanding patterns and instinctively or intuitively knowing the patterns so that you can be able to predict the patterns in the future. So if you're really good at patterns, you probably have a lot of logical definition. Last but not least, there is an angelic matrix. This is a matrix of circuits. It's actually a conglomeration of different circuits. This is based on the work of Dr. Eleanor Haspel-Portner. She did studies with people who had angelic encounters, and she explored the timing with the transits on different angelic encounters, and she came up with this particular series of gates and channels that she associated with transits that oftentimes brought into people's experiences encounters with angels. I don't know if I teach this strictly in the context of these are the circuits that connect to angels, but definitely what I'll see is that if you've got definition in any of these gates and circuits, your ability to leapfrog over the conditioning field and go directly into the quantum field for truth is beautifully part of your design. So again, just to review, we are living in a cosmic timeless plan that is rooted in the bonding energy of love, or the creative energy of love. It exists outside of the confines of time. Your intuition allows you to leapfrog over the conditioning field and over your earthly experience, and to draw or to take information out of this giant field of timeless data where the cosmic plan is stored, and it allows you to know what is truth for you. Here's the deal though, and this is really important. You cannot have a clear connection, or you cannot play your unique role in the cosmic plan if you haven't healed your own trauma, or if because of any trauma that you have, you are out of integrity. So let's talk about that. Now, integrity can be moral integrity, and we'll talk about that in a second. But when we look at integrity in the dictionary, it's also the state of being whole and undivided. In other words, when we are in integrity, we're in structural integrity. We are whole. We are not split up. We're not living out self-sabotage protocols. We're not hiding out parts of who we are. We have no longer internalized the message that it's not okay for us to be who we are and how we are. In quantum human design, we see that the energy for integrity lives actually in the gate 26. This gate is also, by the way, associated with the thymus gland, and this is a gland that's important to our immune function. And when we are in integrity, our immunity is actually strengthened. Integrity is also connected to the will center, so our self-worth is intimately tied into our integrity. Anytime we experience a breach in integrity, it threatens our self-worth and our value. And anytime our self-worth and our value is not functioning at the highest level, it causes us to experience breaches in integrity. So the gate 26 is here. Again, it does not matter in this context whether you have it defined or open. We all have it. We just have it configured in different ways. There are 5 kinds of integrity associated with the gate 26. The first one is called physical integrity. Physical integrity is the health and wellness of our body. So when our bodies can no longer support our workforce energy, then we have no choice but to rest. That physical, we get out of physical integrity when we burn out and we don't nurture ourselves, we don't value ourselves, and we don't take good care of ourselves and our bodies. So when we're committing energy we don't have, we're using our bodies in ways that are not aligned with our authentic self, then we have a breach in integrity, physical integrity. The second kind of integrity is what's called resource integrity. What happens is when we don't value ourselves, we misuse our resources. We have unhealthy relationships with our stuff. We have unhealthy relationships with our money. We don't take care of our money. We don't have a good relationship with money and our things. The third kind of integrity is identity integrity. This is when we think we can't make money or be valued for who we are as authentic people. So we hide our authentic identity, we hide out who we are, we compromise who we are in the world, and then we get exhausted trying to be something we're not, and eventually we burn out and usually go into breaches of physical integrity and resource integrity. The fourth kind of integrity is called moral integrity. If you don't believe you are enough, if your self-worth is not healthy, then sometimes you might resort to immoral actions to try to get your fair share because you don't believe that you are worthy of having enough. So moral integrity can be a symptom of low self-worth and low self-esteem. The last, but definitely not the least of the 5 types of integrity is energetic integrity. And energetic integrity happens when we overcommit and we fail to use our energy correctly. And we try to push with energy we don't have when we're exhausted and burned out, or we try to overdo as a way of trying to prove our value and our worth. And of course, bottom line is we get burned out and exhausted. Some symptoms to think about. If you are living out of integrity, you might have a cynical and a negative outlook. You might experience self-doubt, a sense of failure. You might take out your frustrations on others. You might feel helpless, trapped, defeated, tired, or drained most of the time. You might fail to show up to work, or you might show up late. You might have frequent headaches, back pain, muscle pain, lowered immunity, a change in appetite or sleep habits. You might experience decreased satisfaction, a decreased sense of accomplishment. You might experience a loss of motivation, avoidance, procrastination, resistance. You might use food, drugs, alcohol, Netflix, and Cheetos to cope. You might fail to follow through on taking the steps you need to take to fulfill your dreams. You might be detached, shut others out, or feel alone in the world. By the way, this is not a comprehensive list. We can all probably add things to this list ourselves, right? You can't know what is truth. And that's the big truth about you, your life path. That's also the little truths, like who's right, the Republicans or the Democrats or these people or that people or this science and this. You can't know what's truth when you're out of integrity, because what drives the being out of integrity is the need to prove your value. And when we get into a drive to prove our value, oftentimes what also gets involved in that is the need to prove our rightness. And when we get into a cycle of needing to prove our rightness, we oftentimes can't see the big picture because we're going so far down a rabbit hole that we can't get out of the limitation of our perspective. You can't know what is truth or what is true if you're out of integrity. When you're in integrity, you experience greater levels of physical well-being. You have a deeper sense of value and purpose. Your ability to take concrete steps toward creating, you have the ability to take concrete steps towards creating what you truly want in your life. You have the ability to live a more sustainable life. You have renewed energy and drive, and it constantly renews itself. So you're no longer in boom and bust cycles of energy. You have healthy relationships that honor who you are. You have more fulfillment and ease. In other words, when you live in integrity, you wake up every morning happy to be alive, enthusiastic about getting the day started. You're connected to your purpose. You're doing what brings you joy. Your relationships are enlivening. And of course, they're also a source of support, and you're able to create the resources you need, including the money, to fulfill who you are. So I just want to take a brief minute and share with you that I'm opening up a brand new section of our integrity course. This is a 6-part home study course. It's self-paced videos. It's got slides. It's got a lot of really I don't want to scare you away from the homework, but I want to say that I have 2 courses that I've created in the last few years that I'm just really, really proud of, because there's a deep degree of personal work that goes along with the program, and it's really powerful, and I think really, really important work that's going to help you learn how to live in integrity. So there are explorations, there's homework that goes with it, but it's not like it's going to take you hours every day. It's a really intensive series of contemplations to help you really look at, where are you in or out of integrity. It also, in this program, you're going to get access to the Quantum Human Design Types Report. You're going to get access to the Quantum Human Design Gates ebook. You're going to get access to a virtual retreat. So at the end of the program, we're actually going to do an online virtual retreat together, where we're going to explore and play with some of the things we've uncovered in the program. And you're going to get lessons and worksheets on what's called the resiliency keys, which are 9 core archetypes that influence your state of integrity and your alignment with integrity. You're also going to learn how to identify where you have a breach in integrity and how it's impacting your life. You're going to learn how your human design influences your integrity and what you need to do to create greater alignment with your human design so you can be in integrity. You're going to learn about your unique energy needs and how your energy needs influence your relationships. We're going to look specifically at how do you increase your self-worth, your confidence, and your sense of value. We're going to talk about how to set boundaries so that you're not always feeling guilty, or you're not letting your energy field get hijacked by people who don't value you, so you can take better care of yourself. We're going to talk about how to cultivate a deeper understanding of your chart, and how to create a deeper connection and take the right actions that you need to take so you can live your life purpose. Here's the deal. This is a bad slide. Kristen's going to roll her eyes at me because she makes me make pretty slides, and then I make slides in the last minute. Your human design chart is not a labeling system. We're kind of trained, I think, because we want to label things. We like to label things. It helps us make sense of a world that feels very uncertain. But human design is really not a tool that's about labeling yourself. It's a tool that helps you understand, how do you interpret the light as it comes towards you? How do you take the infinite possibilities of the cosmos that you are constantly swimming in and choose with integrity, know the truth of what's coming at you so that you can know what's the next right piece of information you need to have to live your soul and your life purpose? The human design chart itself is literally activated by the sun, by the neutrino stream. We are literally beings who process and are activated by light. We are constantly processing light. Our nervous system, the brain itself, functions with light. When you are exposed to archetypes, thoughts, and ideas, those archetypes trigger photon storms in the brain. Photons are just light. Those photon storms help the brain create neurotransmitters, which in turn create emotional feelings, which in turn actually program the mind and the heart to be in coherence with each other or not. If you are out of integrity, it's like going through your life with the blindfold on. You might be immersed in the light, but you can't see because you got this blind over your eyes, right? Or it's like trying to peer through a windshield that's cracked. This is what happens when we get conditioned. When we get conditioned, it blocks the light from coming through, and we can't find our path and we can't find our way. When you bring yourself back into integrity with who you are, and then you learn how do you interpret, what's your unique hardwiring to interpret the data that's coming at you so that you know how to find what's true for you. When you do that, it's like opening up the window. It's like clearing away the broken glass. It's like ripping off the blindfold and being in the flow of the light that's coming at you. The information, the truth, the love, the creative power, the infinite possibilities that are yours to create in this unique once-in-a-lifetime cosmic event that is you and your life. So, once you do that, as I said, you can clearly know what is truth. So that's what I've got for you today. I hope that in spite of our weird technical glitches, that you've learned something new, that you've gotten a better sense of who you are, how you operate, your contemplations that maybe you need to think about so that you can better claim and live from your integrity, that you are connecting more deeply perhaps with your unique and beautiful way of intuitively knowing what is true for you. It's always an honor to connect with you. I thank you for tolerating my froggy voice, and take good care of yourselves. And I hope to see you in the integrity program. Good night.